Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another vlog in the typical traffic jam of Hamburg. Hamburg basically has so many construction sites, and it's somewhat of a joke in Germany that the government, instead of kind of finishing one project, starts a different project. But yeah, this is a good opportunity to kind of start up this vlog. Today's vlog is somewhat of a, let's say, pep talk, because I kind of was thinking about a couple of things in my past that I could kind of talk about and use as a somewhat pep talk for all of you, for me if I want to rewatch this again in the future, and how you maybe can take a look at that for your own life or for your current position in life, let's say it that way. And what I wanted to talk about is how everything in your life is basically, or has basically, led up to where you are right now, who you are right now. You see, I'm now over 40, and I would say, although there are so many things in life that I'm not really satisfied with, I also realize that there are a lot of things that are great. And I also realized that I went through a lot of hardships, and without those, I probably wouldn't be in the position that I'm in. For example, I would say I was always somewhat underestimated, purely out of either physical appearances. I was always the tiny Asian kid in school. And you see, I was born in the 80s. So that's also something that we will get to in just a second. So I'm over 40 already. I don't say I'm old. I actually believe I'm in my primes. But anyways, born in the 80s, I was basically the only, or one of the very few Asian kids in my school. We basically were only two Asians, and at least in my grade, and I was much tinier than the other one. So I was always the small little kid that was a very easy target to pick on by other people. So I went through my fair share of getting picked on, sometimes getting bullied by other kids who didn't know me and saw me as an easy target. But also, when I was getting a little bit older, and I was able to go to parties, I was, you know how boys sometimes are when they're in their puberty. They want to prove themselves, and who could you use to prove yourself on, which is not much of a threat? It's the short guy. So I've gotten into my fair share of issues and troubles when I was younger, when I was a kid in school. And furthermore, if you're not aware, I feel like the 80s and the 90s were the times where racism was basically very common, in a way. Maybe not always in a hostile way, but in a let's use every single stereotype that is available to kind of poke fun at that one guy, but then kind of say, oh, come on, don't be like that, that was just a joke, not realizing you're making a joke at the expense of someone else. You're not making a joke to laugh together, but you're making a joke at the expense of someone else, and kind of belittling that other person. And if that person, in that case me, is getting if I felt attacked, everyone was like, "Oh, you're like a big whiny because you cannot take a joke or whatever," and that was obviously hard for me as a kid, and you start to build up some form of defense mechanism. You either deal with it, you kind of hide all of that emotions inside, because obviously if you say something, then you get picked on even more. And that is something which I had always to struggle with. But when I got older, I do have to acknowledge that that also made me a little bit harder. Not in a way that I'm closed off and bitter. Quite the opposite, actually. I feel like I'm a very positive person. But it gave me a specific perspective that I personally don't want to treat anyone like that. Especially, I'm living my life in a way that I at least know that I know that everyone around me can teach me at least one thing. And in my life, I always have been told, "Oh, why don't you do something useful in your life?" You see, I started becoming a film editor when I left school, when I graduated. I honestly did not know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to become. I didn't know what kind of career to start. So for 1 year, I basically did nothing. I worked at something like Blockbuster. It wasn't called Blockbuster here in Germany, obviously, but a place where you can rent movies. I worked at McDonald's. I worked a little bit in a nightclub and stuff like that. So just stuff to kind of get some money, pay rent, and see where life is taking me. Then I did an internship. I saw this ad in a magazine where it was like, "Hey, we're looking for an intern at this production company, has to know Final Cut and some other software that I currently forgot." I think it was what was the name of the DVD program from Apple. So Apple had actually an editing program, a program where you can program DVDs, then Apple Motion and stuff like that. So yeah, they said like, "Oh, it has to be able to do that." And I thought like, "Oh, I like DJing, so something completely different. I'm good with software. It's called Production Company. Let's try it out." So I went there, sent out a letter. They invited me, asked me, "Hey, can you do all that software?" And I was fairly confident in my ability to learn software really quick, because that is one of my strengths. I can learn software extremely fast and get proficient at that. So I was very confident, and I said like, "Yeah, I know that software," which was a blatant lie. So they took me in, and fortunately I was actually able to learn that software really quick. And yeah, after a year they took me in as an assistant, and I've never gotten a real education in my job. So I basically did everything learning by doing. And during those years there were a couple of people saying, "Hey, when are you going to do something real?" Because all of them were going to uni or having these high paid jobs, and I was like doing long hours, because not only was I working, but also I enjoyed that work because I was able to have access to Final Cut and hardware that was not attainable by someone like me who had not a high-paying job, but yeah, wanted to learn filmmaking. I had access to really good mini DV cameras, and I was able to do stuff on the side, not earning money but learning stuff. I started making my own videos and stuff like that, but people were seeing, oh, he's doing so many hours, but he has nothing on paper. He basically works a lot, but not like us. He's not getting a degree or something like that. He's doing something in the film industry. So I was always kind of looked down upon in a way, because people were not believing in whatever I was doing and did not think that whatever I was doing has a future. But I believed in myself, and I thought, this is something that I enjoy. Why should I quit all of this, go to university, which honestly I wasn't able to afford anyways. I did not have parents with a lot of money, and as a matter of fact, my parents, shortly after I moved out, lost their house, or our house, the house where I grew up in, to the bank, had to move out. The house had to be auctioned off, and yeah, it was a terrible time. So I never had the money to actually be able to go to university. So that wasn't even an option. So I believed in the path that I was going on. It was hard. I definitely have to admit that, because obviously seeing my parents be in a lot of debt, and I was working hard. I actually went through 2 burnouts. The first one I didn't take for serious, just said, oh, that's okay, just do it like 1 or 2 weeks of vacation, then go back. Then I had my second burnout, and I crashed hard. I crashed really hard. Went to therapy, learned a lot about myself, time management and energy management, and became a stronger person and stick to the path that I was on. And long story short, all of these hardships, it's difficult. Life is hard. Life is difficult. Let's totally be real. And there will be times where you just want to quit. And I can tell you, I've had so many times where I wanted to quit. To a couple of different degrees that I'm not going into it right now, but I always stood up. I rose from, I'm not going to say rose from the ashes, because I don't want to be that melodramatic, but I stood up. I realized that it was hard, and that's something you really need to acknowledge for yourself. Don't be afraid to admit that something sucks. Don't be afraid to admit that you maybe failed at something, because we all fail at some point. We cannot be successful, and honestly, I don't want to say I dislike those people, but I feel like some people exaggerate that, oh, I worked so hard and that is why I'm this successful and earned this money, put in the hours and just toughen up and do this and that. I don't like that. We are not perfect. None of us is perfect. We all fail. We all have our issues. We all cry at some point, and we need to admit that we sometimes fail. Not only sometimes, we often fail. I failed a lot. And we have to admit that life is hard, and it's not easy. Life is not easy. And people who are saying, oh, it's easy, or you just need to do this because just toughen up and put in the work and put in the hours and whatnot. And while that might be true, it also somehow says or negates the fact that we fail a lot, we fall a lot. And that's what I want to say to you. It's okay to fail. It's okay not to be successful, because being successful at something is really hard. You won't be able to be successful all of the time. You need to fail, because it will make you a better person if you learn from it, if you stand up again after the fall. And honestly, it might sound cheesy, but that is something that I tattooed on myself. Our greatest victory is not, or our greatest glory, I forgot, and because it's so long on my hands that I somehow forgot the proper sentence. But our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. And that is something that I live by, basically, because I know I'm going to fail. I failed a lot. My family was going through so many shitty situations. I am going through so many shitty situations. I have people not paying me, money issues, stuff like that. Life, right? When you get older, you get more responsibilities and life becomes harder. But this life is all about acknowledging and realizing that that is going to happen, that is okay, that you are allowed to be sad, that you are allowed to be frustrated at life. But it's up to you to say, like, okay, this was shitty and I failed. Let's pick ourselves up, look at what was wrong about that. Can I improve upon that? Or was whatever I've been doing and now that I failed, is it still okay? For example, if you do something out of pure passion, you fail at it, then of course it's shitty. But if you had fun with it, then it wasn't a failure. Then it's okay. If you enjoyed the process, then it's okay. It's just like a relationship. If it breaks up after a couple of years, yes, you could say, oh, I wasted my years. But on the other hand, you could also say, oh man, we had so many good years and I learned so much. I grew as a person. So therefore, it was not a mistake. And that's the same thing with all of the other things. And that's what I want to circle back on. We all make mistakes. And this YouTube thing that you maybe want to start with, or whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be YouTube. We talk a lot about YouTube on this channel, but you could apply everything that I tell you on this channel on everything in your life. Maybe it's a new job. You could apply everything that I'm telling you for a new job, or for a new relationship, or I don't know, anything that you might want to learn new. You could apply everything that I say upon that. So starting this could be a stupid idea. If you start a YouTube channel, put in the hours, yes, you could say maybe this is stupid, maybe it's a waste of time. Yeah, you could say that. But also you could learn something from it, and it's totally fine. Just do this thing. If it fails, you've learned something. If it fails, you can tell yourself, oh, at least I tried. Or if it fails, you could say, hey, I enjoyed the process. I just keep continuing doing this because it's fun. And that's basically how I approach this thing. And I want to encourage you to do this kind of stuff, because I've seen this one video where it's a YouTuber also in his 40s, or probably older than me, maybe in his close to 50s. And he told the story about someone asking, in his age bracket, in his peer group, friend group, he was keeping the YouTube channel somewhat private, did not tell his friends. They were asking about that, and they, as far as I can tell from the story, were somewhat judging him for doing something that only the young kids do. And that will definitely happen. Just like in my case, when people were asking, hey, when are you doing something serious? People probably will ask you, well, why do you do something like that? Why do you do YouTube? Aren't you too old for that stuff? Or you put in so many hours in that, did you earn something? Is it worth it? That will happen. And there's some truth to that. But if you enjoy it, who cares, right? And in the end, you basically always will take something away. And that is personal growth, learning a new skill, or whatever. So yeah, that's all that I wanted to say. Probably forgot something that I wanted to say, but yeah, that is my small, short little, it wasn't short, right? My little pep talk. I hope you enjoyed this video. And yeah, maybe if you want to check out my last vlog, check out the video up here, and YouTube thinks that you like the video down here. And don't forget to subscribe by clicking the little button up here. I see you in the next video. Thank you very much.